Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we are back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And again, we're here with the great Marc Spelmann. Marc, how are you doing?
I'm doing really with the great. Tell my wife that, please, because someone needs to convince her, right? Good to be with you guys. I've been looking forward to this. Has been on the cards now for a couple of months now, Steve. We got you kind of got
definitely, man. We wanted to get you on a while back, but I knew how busy you were, and then with everything with the pandemic and everything else. So yeah, no, it's great to have you here.
Oh no, lovely. Nice to be with you, gents. So I'm all yours.
We always start at the beginning with the cliche question of how you got into magic, and also I think the interesting thing was where you decided to specialize in more of the mentalism side of magic.
Okay, so for me, starting out with magic was it was a bit of a cliche story. I'll be honest with you. It was my nan getting me a magic set, and I remember it dearly. I remember an orange box, Paul Daniels on the front, and it had the best card case. The card case with the, I don't know if we talk methods on here, but like card case, right? But it was one of the best ones I've ever had. And someone recently, very kind, a guy called Mick Wilson, very sweetly he's a collector of all the old Paul Daniels magic sets, very kindly just sent me 2 of these card cases, and it was like nostalgia. Like the instructions were the same as when I was like 7 or 8 years old, whenever it was. So that was the way that I got into magic, and that sort of was the bug was bitten. Cliche, just opened up the box, took it very, very seriously, probably way more serious than most kids would do when they get a magic set. I think there's a bit of curiosity, and then they put it to one side and get on with the rest of their lives. I chose that. I just loved it. I just thought, wow, these secrets, these things, these clever little bits and things. And I remember it was Christmas Day, and I sort of disappeared for an hour. And my mum was like, "Aren't you going to come and open up the rest of your presents?" I hadn't even finished yet, and I was like, "No, Mum, I'll be there in a minute." Time out. And I learned 3 tricks from the set, obviously all very easy to do. And but then it got to dinner time, and we had family, as you do, Christmas dinner and all that kind of stuff. And I went round, I said, "Oh, quick magic trick." And they all looked at you like, "Oh, bless him." I was about 7. So they all looked at you going, "Oh, go on then, Mr. Magic, show us your trick." But then I did the trick, and I actually did it really well, to the point where the adults are going, "No, what? No, sorry, one sec. Do that again." Like that. So now that was, I just thought, wow, it was empowering. And as a kid, I was really shy, way shy, like really, really, really shy. So magic was just this thing that I could do. And I was also in love with superheroes. I used to draw my own comic books. I used to illustrate and all that kind of stuff. So I used to draw my own comic books. So to me, it was almost like having not a power, but it was kind of, you could fake it. And I was that really awkward, quiet kid that would get the spider off the wall and put it on his hand in the hope that I'd be able to climb walls afterwards. That was me. So so that was my entry into magic. My old websites, and this is funny because obviously, like, you guys have done magic, but when you're writing your biography, and I thought, I can't have that as my biography. So my biography on my old website was, Marc was fascinated by the paranormal. This bolt of lightning struck him in a forest, and he gained these powers. And it was like, oh man. So that was my entry into magic.
Yeah,
cool.
So I think similar to us as well, kids with magic sets who took them way too seriously compared to everyone else.
But it's good though. I think one of the most, like, for me, the thing that I truly love about magic, and I still do to this day, as passionate about it as ever, and that is that we will never know it all. We can become really good at what we do, but there'll always be something new, and there'll always be something old that we never even knew about. And we go, "What? It's in that book, page 68? Are you kidding me? That's been on my shelf for like 10 years." And for me, magic is like, if I didn't do it as a job, and it doesn't feel like a job, I'm in love with it. I love every kind of magic you could possibly imagine. I've got so much respect for children's magicians, because I think children's magicians are going into the lion's den. As corporate magicians, we kind of talk about, your tough crowd the other night, they're all drunk. but kids will say whatever they want. So a kid's magician, I go, I have no idea how you guys are doing that, because that's scary. So, but quick change, dove magic, you name it. Over the years that I've been invested in magic, I've learned almost every type of thing, and not to perform it. Some of it, like with quick change, I just think, yeah, I love that. So clever. Let's just investigate that a little bit. Dove magic, I've never ever wanted to produce a dove in my life, but I thought I really like the elegance of it, and thought I want to learn it. I want to have a little bit of knowledge, specialize in my chosen area, which was mentalism and a bit quirky, darker kind of magic, especially before BGT. But I love to have a general understanding. I think a really good musician, or someone who's brilliant at music, they won't master every type of music, but they will understand it. And I think that's kind of what I've always tried to do with magic. Even I designed big stage illusions years ago for a guy called Simon Drake, a fantastic magician from the sort of really sort of secret cabaret back in the late 80s, early 90s. I worked with Simon for years. And my illustration skills, I used to illustrate literally all the bases and things that happen. Won't go into too much detail, but yeah. So so a background in illusion design, which you just never think of when you think of like Marc Spelmann designing a decapitation illusion. Is it really? So, but yeah, I've been there, done it, and I love it dearly.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on. No, go on.
Yeah, you think, because I think we all need that, because there's so much stuff, especially in mentalism, that I don't want to learn that style, and then you realize, that method actually I can adapt into mentalism, or vice versa. And I do think there's stuff you learn that you think, I'll never use that, and then the right moment comes up, and you're like, actually, in this quick change act, there's a thing we used to do that. I could use that to load a prediction, or there's all these different things you can.
Well, you're right, and I'll give you a perfect example of that, and that is, oh god, my brain's now going to go completely dead. The amazing Apollo Robbins, the amazing pickpocket from America. Apollo is phenomenal as like coin magic, card magic. He's got such a sort of cool, calm delivery. I love Apollo Robbins. He's fantastic. But he did a great piece. I don't know if it was, I think it was for a TED talk, and it's kind of gone viral. And he talks about observation and how we observe things. So he does this whole bit with the coin on the shoulder, but then at the end of it, he's wearing a completely different, he's not wearing a tie, he's not wearing a waistcoat, but he drew their attention to it at the very beginning. And that is essentially quick change skills, but using it in a psychological, you didn't notice the change thing. And that's a perfect example of that. Patrick Cuffs, who's a fantastic mentalist from Canada, he has a dove in a paper bag that he stamps on these bags. I mean, really un-PC, but stamps on these bags. The last one takes it out, reaches inside, and pulls out a dove. So you sort of think to yourself, yeah, God, you could employ dove magic techniques to create something completely different, something completely, and so I think it's always worth learning. I think it's always worth learning, because it opens up more doors. I'm a mentalist from before Derren Brown, so I came from the old school, I guess, of like Larry Becker and Lee Earl Syzygy and stuff like that. 13 steps, all of the practical mental magic. As well as my brain is it's here somewhere. Where is the book? I always talk about this book, and it's hilarious because there's a trick in it. Oh, there you go. My Myth of Magic, T.A. Walters. There's a trick in that book. If you've got the book sitting on your shelves, look up Demon Key. T.A. Walters passed away years ago, and I missed an opportunity to see T.A. Walters lecture at the International Magic Convention years ago. I remember I just had to leave. I just had to leave this convention just because of other commitments. And I was gutted because I was like, T.A. Walters, mentalism, this guy, And then it was like, I think it was a year or year and a half later on, he passed away. So I never got to see him lecture. But Demon Key in his book, I don't know the page number, I should look it up, but Demon Key, look at the method for this, because I think TA incredible, but I think he might have been doing something that you're not supposed to be doing when he came up with that trick idea. It is honestly, it is, read it and you'll message me later, both of you are going to go, oh my god, I never knew that. But that's an example of like the whole thing of like the stuff that you find in books that have been sitting on your shelves for so long that you kind of go, I didn't even know that was in there. So but yeah, so like I'm old school. So my old school, the reason why I mentioned that about being old school is I come from a background where I didn't have any sort of peer to look to. So I think when Darren came out, and you know, Darren, I know Darren reasonably well. I wouldn't say that we're, sort of close buddies, but I've always got time for Darren. I think he's brilliant. I think what he's done is fantastic. But I think the problem sometimes when you have someone as iconic and as mainstream as Darren Brown was, especially on UK television, is that you start to get a lot of I think people sort of kind of have a go at people that mimic that, and I think that's harsh, because I think sometimes you just look at who's doing it the best, and Darren has been doing it the best for a long time, and not so much now. I know he's sort of kind of easing off a little bit, and just I think he's just enjoying life a bit more. And obviously we've had a pandemic, but my old school reference is that I grew up learning all different sleight of hand techniques, card changes by David Williamson, coin magic by David Roth back in the day, and all of those things have had fundamental influence and enhanced my capabilities as a mentalist. So my coin bend, one of my coin bending routines that I did for years and years and years was based upon a move in Bobo's Modern Coin Magic. It's this one-handed switch with a coin. And I'd grab a coin from you, take it, and I'd switch it out with a one-handed switch. It was such a lovely move. And then I'd go, oh, actually, before we carry on, can you just initial the edge of the coin for me and then get them to just mark it? And then now I could do this signed coin bend with no coin bender. It's, I don't want to talk too many methods, yeah. Coin bender. Sorry. But and the same thing with David Williamson's top change. I've used that in place of having an add a number pad. Yeah. I've used a top change for that, where I've handed out like blank pieces of card to an audience and said, just all of you, just write down 2 or 3 digit numbers for me. Just do that for me, as many as you like. And then I collect those cards together. I add something to the mix, do a get someone to point to one, top change it, and then now everything is in my favor, if that makes sense. I don't know how much we obviously this goes up on YouTube, so is this we're careful with methods, is that right?
You can be somewhat careful. It's like,
okay,
it's hard enough to get magicians to watch it.
Got it. Okay, got it. Okay.
It's true that what you're saying with the having the kind of appreciation for all the different styles of magic, it does make you kind of like, I think it really kind of grounds you as an artist. You can kind of dip and move into different sides, and sometimes, like myself and Dave, like I primarily do a lot of escapes and stunts and things like that, but I'm a magician as well, where Dave would be more like a mentalist, but we've combined things before, and it's nice to kind of play around if you kind of know the fundamentals of all magic.
Oh, 100%. I mean, a perfect example. I mean, you're talking about escapes. So right now, actually, I don't know if I've still got them, but I had like, I had a set of official American police handcuffs, probably the mid to late 80s, I think it was. And I had these handcuffs, and it was in Tannen's magic book. So you had like big, thick, beautiful catalog, like in the old days. I love those catalogs in the old days. You used to read the description of the tricks and try and work it out from about like a paragraph of text. And it was this set, it said, escape from official police handcuffs. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, great. So I ordered it, waited 3 months for it to come from America, because it's back in the old days. And it turned up, and it was an official set of police handcuffs, and it just showed you the little jimmy that you wedge in that engages the teeth and does the bit, but it was so I mean, even that, just no purpose, never done it, but I just kind of go, oh, yeah, I'm interested. So
Yeah.
like escapes and stuff like that, you know, I know Jonathan Goodwin, we were both on BGT together. So obviously Jonathan does a lot of the stuff now. He's sort of really big in America, so he's doing really well. So yeah, I love all that stuff. Matt Johnson as well. Matt's just he's just announced actually today on Instagram that he's auditioned for America's Got Talent, so he's doing a big escape. So yeah,
we had Matt Johnson on last week, so very
okay, brilliant. Well, Matt's a lovely guy, and obviously we come from the 2018 Britain's Got Talent time, because he had a smash with the water tank escape. And we were actually on the same episode, the very first episode. So I did the dedication to Isabella and Tessa, and Matt did his water escape. And it was lovely because we know each other from the past anyway, not massively, but we know of each other. And I sent a message just saying, wow, you smashed it, because I thought the music when he came out of the tank and the look on his face was perfect. And he said to me, no, you smashed it. And it was like this mutual backpatting, but it was genuine, it was sincere. And I've got a lot of time for Matt. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a good and that's a really a good example as well. If you think of what you see of Matt Johnson on the public face now, you kind of think of like escapes, right? Okay, escapes and this and that. But Matt is fantastic with a deck of cards. He's got all these skills. I mean, one of the best-selling tricks on Penguin Magic is his trick with the playing card with it's called Melt, with a note and a card. It looks like a card that melts through a note. One of the best-selling, best-reviewed tricks on Penguin.
It's always top selling, like forever.
Yeah.
It's never not been in the top 10.
Exactly. It's always there. You just see Matt's face all the time. But, but again, it's just amazing how, you kind of learn all these skills and you can then just kind of find your niche. And I think that's a really, really good, sensible thing to do, because I think it's like, I look at life like this, and I always try and explain this to people about what they do, what they're going to do with their lives. And I think to myself, like, you should look at life like a menu. Imagine going into a restaurant and you sit down and you kind of go, right, I think I'm going to like the lamb chops with the roast potatoes, as an example. But there's all this other stuff on the menu. And you never try any of those things because that's the one that that's the one I like. That's the one, it's safe. Yeah. And I think you need to look at life like that. And for me, magic is the same. I look at magic and I think, I love magic. I know where I'm kind of going. I know what I want to do. But now, obviously, after being X on BGT, that's completely changed. Like now, I very rarely walk out on stage as a mind reader. I mean, obviously, no one's really walked out on stage for a while. But like the year after X, that June was when the final was of Britain's Got Talent. I performed probably 80% as X, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun because when X walks, I talk about him like he's another person, but when X walks,
don't ruin the mystery.
He is right. So
it's not Shim Lim. I thought it was Shim Lim.
It was never me. It was a hoax. I just put the mask on for the last show. That was it. I just all the other times it was someone you have no idea who it was.
It's been
but no, honestly, I was in China. I was in Japan. We performed at the bottom of the Acropolis in Greece. It was crazy, like absolutely crazy. But when X walks out, there's just because of I put a lot of like effort into like the digital and the sound and everything, and it just becomes this big thing. So it's and I can't wait to get back out and doing it again. It's going to be amazing. I've had so much writing time over the last year that I've just got so much stuff. I mean, obviously back then in that immediate success after BGT, everyone wanted to see the PK touches and that kind of thing, which I still do. It's like a bit like your hit that people know. So I'll still do it, but there's other things that I'm doing now with X as well. So yeah. So
with the X thing as well, when you're coming up with like your performance style, was there something that surprised you about performing behind a mask and like not being able to speak? Did it take you a while to get used to that like style?
Yeah, no, do you know what? There are pros and there are cons, as with everything in life. The cons are you have to be very specific about your material. Something that I did in America, on America's Got Talent, the champions, and I was in the semi-finals. And when you look at it up on YouTube, it's not really out there on YouTube. There's a couple of sort of people have got it uploaded. It hasn't got millions and millions of views, which I'm quite glad about, because I had a major issue. If you look at the performance, you go, well, that was about 1 minute 40 seconds long. Like, what's going on there? But there was a part in that performance where I used a thing called a conductor. Got me? Yeah. All right. And I used it with Terry Crews, and it did not work. And that was just, it just didn't work. It was just and because I've got a recorded voice, there's no comeback. There's no, it's like the audio plays, it's over the system. I'm not triggering it. It's all really carefully choreographed. But since then, we've made changes because of this situation. But also, it was, for me, like, in hindsight, it was funny because I after the performance, I was like, oh my God, that was a bit of a car crash, went a bit wrong. And it does, you know, these things happen to everyone. But I went backstage, and have you ever seen Boogie Storm on Britain's Got Talent? They're the Stormtroopers.
Yeah,
the guys that are all dressed up as stormtroopers do all the dancing, right? So Lee is the guy that actually came up with that whole act. So he's a fireman from Liverpool, lovely guy, really get on well with Lee. And I sat down with him and two of the other stormtroopers, Jack and Jack, ironically, two Jacks, and we sat down, and Lee was going to me, how'd it go? Because he couldn't see it, he was rehearsing. And I was like, oh, just one bit just did not work. Tried this conductor out on all three of them, and it worked. And they were like, that is just the weirdest thing. I'm just, what's going on? You know what I'm saying when I do this, right? But then Lee said to me, Terry Crews is an ex-footballer, American footballer. So who knows what kind of damage he may have had, perforated eardrums, that kind of thing. So that we kind of worked out could be a factor. So it was very, very frustrating. But you know, like when all these elements came together and it just didn't work. So there are pros and cons. If I was doing that as Marc Spelmann, I've got ways out of that. You know, instantly, where I can just chat and I'll just go, okay, all right, Terry, do me a favor, stand up for me. Breathe in, breathe, and I just do this whole thing where I'm skirting around it to get back on track. Whereas with X, because of the recorded vocals, you haven't got that luxury of improvisation, which we all know. There are times when you don't see what you want to see. You don't, you know, something's not buzzing when it's about. When it's supposed to buzz, right? And you're kind of going, right, okay, like, you know, let's
we're a weird one. We're a weird one.
People that are not magicians that are watching this, if they do, like, God, they wouldn't have got this far, surely. But they'd be going, what is this? Like, he's got some sort of conductor. He's got a thing that buzzes. What is going on in his life? Like, you know, what's all the clever psychological techniques? But so there are pros. The real pros, though, the pros to it is that your act is really refined. You do find a discipline for going, it needs to happen here. And if anything, I've gained more on stage ability with handling an audience as X far more in 1 year than I did as Marc Spelmann in 5 years, because I am quite not forceful, but I'm really direct. If I want you standing there, I'll put you there, not in a horrible way, but I just get it done because I know that I need to be in time with all of the other external elements. Now the way that we're doing it, and the way that we started doing it just before the lockdown happened, is that there are pre-recorded elements to X's voice, the large bulk of it, but I have a live microphone and I have a voice changer, so that if there is any need to sort of even just say something like, have another look. It will come out and it'll be voice changed and it sounds quite demonic, to be honest with you. But it doesn't matter if that's then blended on with pre-recorded softer X voice, if that makes sense. So there's pros and cons. And you know what, as well, it's a discipline. It's like, I think of people like Aaron Crow, you know, a brilliant act. You know, Aaron, he's silent. He does things with a gesture, a raise of an eyebrow, you know, and you kind of think there's a real art to that. You don't think it at the time, because as mentalists, we kind of walk on stage and talk a lot, as you can probably tell by this, right? But we walk out and for me, sometimes talk too much, just like cut it back. And that was one of the really amazing things about Britain's Got Talent, of which there are many. I can't, you know, like I really enjoyed doing the show. But one of the things that was a real learning curve is 4.5 minutes. Huh? Yeah. 4.5 minutes. So hang on a minute. I've got to do the Rubik's Cube, the crayon, the bit with Simon in the book. What was the other bit? Alicia with the cards. I've got to do all of that, create a narrative, tell a story, get to the end, 4.5 minutes. Now, it doesn't go for 4.5 minutes. It actually goes for about, I think it's about 6 minutes. But even still, if I said to you, get all of those elements, make it clear and concise, 6 minutes. And the same thing with Magician X. I mean, that was like even more I genuinely had no idea. When I was in Manchester and I auditioned as Magician X with the first PK Touch with Ant and Dec, genuinely, I remember saying to Tessa, my wife, and Colin, who's like one of my best friends in the world, he was with me. He was pretending to be my manager. And I just said to him, I said, you know what, the benefit of this is if this goes really badly, I'm in a mask. I'll just go like nothing works, or it just go, oh, it's all a bit weird. We're just not, I'm sorry, it's just too weird, and just like buzz you off. At least you can just walk, just sort of go like, no, I was at home, mate, having a curry, nothing to do with me. You know what I mean?
Well, if you got 4 X's and you're Magician X, it kind of works out. It would need to have to really
does,
well.
Doesn't it? Yeah, that was my aim. Yeah, there you go. So so it's, there are pros and cons, but I think that's with everything, you know. I mean, Steve, I mean, you mentioned escapology, like that's got I mean, I know you probably have a few sort of safety measures in place, because obviously, you know, but I think to myself, God, if something like that, I think mentalism and even magic, you know, like close-up magic or sort of like that kind of sleight of hand magic, there are ways we can weave ourselves around bits where it kind of goes wrong. Worst case scenario in mentalism, David, you'll know this, that if something just goes wrong, you say, you know what, I think we should try something different, because I think that you are the sort of person that is, and you're just going, that didn't work. Let's just do a different trick.
The worst thing that can happen in mentalism is a paper cut off a billet. That's the worst that can happen.
That's probably it. I would go with that. Yeah. An embarrassing bleed. Yeah, I'd definitely go with that.
Because
you have to kind of calculate it a bit differently. It's normally, it's not just you, and if you're an escape artist, it's just you. You're probably, you know, not still in the game. You need to trust everyone around you, because a lot of it is timing, and then your skill on top of it, you know, and being prepared. But I mean, yeah, like everything, you know, something can go wrong on the day, an act of God, anything, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and you're dealing. It's one of those things. They say one of the hardest things for an actor to do, and I don't know this to be true, but I've heard it, so I'll repeat it because it's not me. But they say one of the hardest things that actors are asked to do is to act whilst incorporating some sort of physical prop or activity. If you get them to stand there and just have dialogue, done that a million times. But if you're sort of saying to them, do that, make a coffee, then pick up your mobile phone, read a text, it's like all of that. And if you think about what we do, that's what we do. Like that whole notion that men can't multitask. I love that, because I turn around and go, I'm a magician. I multitask all the time. Like I am talking to you, I'm doing something else over here. My mind is watching that person over there. It's like, you know, So it's, I think we have a pretty tough job. I think certainly for escapology as well, there's a lot of moving parts and things that you're relying on that, you know, if you're not WD-40'd up, you're it's like, what's going on? It can be that, it can be just that, you know. So
you were talking earlier about like before you did BGT that you did like mentalism, more like the dark style of performing, and then I think a lot of people might have been surprised when they saw you the first time on Britain's Got Talent, and you were doing something like so sweet and also like personal and vulnerable. Where did that idea come in to like
So
as you're doing it?
you know what, it's life. I mean, it's just life. It just was. It was. I remember because originally I was going to go on Britain's Got Talent. I'd done corporate. I love mentalism from a young age because I found that I love close-up magic. David Williamson is one of my favorite close-up magicians of all time. I think he's a genius, and but I've always loved close-up magic. I loved David Blaine when he came out. I know a lot of magicians were kind of like, "Whoa, you know, he doesn't. Oh, it's easy," and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's easy or not. It's just like I liked his vibe. I liked his style. I thought he was cool and unusual and a bit weird, and that's always good. And I thought he was cool. So I really enjoyed David Blaine. I've loved David Williamson. I love so many different types. I love Bill Malone because Bill Malone is Bill Malone. I love oh God, my brain again's gone dead now. Hang on a minute. Oh, brain's gone dead. Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. But I love lots of different types of performers for lots of different reasons. For me, I kind of just felt that I started working with Simon Drake, and I hadn't really sort of created an identity for myself. And it's really interesting because, oh God, again, hang on a minute. I'm trying to think of his name now. He does the egg bag, a really good egg bag. He comes across as very camp, an American magician, blonde hair.
I can picture him.
He's always got like real Vegas kind of sparkly jacket.
Yes. Oh my God, my brain. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I've got brain fog today. Jeff Hobson. There you go. Right. So Jeff Hobson.
We can move on.
Jeff Hobson, amazing, right? Really, really good magician. I saw him years ago on a thing called the Magic Comedy Strip, which was in the early 90s. And you had the Pendragons, and even I think Joe Pasquale was on it as well, and David Williamson, and you had Jeff Hobson. And I remember I went and did this masterclass in the early 2000s, like 2002, something like that, in Las Vegas. And I met Jeff Hobson, and he did this talk. And I really thought that Jeff was homosexual. I thought it was a gay guy. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. I just thought he was. And we all went bowling. So, you know, Matt King and Jeff Hobson and like everyone's bowling. And he goes, "Oh, I've got to pick the kids up from school." And then I was like, "Oh, right, okay." But then I heard that he had a wife, and I thought, "Oh, wow, so that's a character that he plays." And then the next day he did this talk about his character. And he said that he tried every type of magic. He did like card manipulation. He did mentalism. He did sort of close-up card kind of guy, gambler type stuff. And he stumbled across his identity purely by accident. He was in I think it was like a really rough venue, like biker guys in the audience and stuff. And he walked out, and his wife had bought him some sparkly kind of neck thing, not a tie, but... And she said, "Oh, you got to wear it. I bought it for you." So he thought, "Oh, God." So he puts it on for this gig, walks out on stage, and these two guys, just biker guys, are looking at him on stage in this rough venue. And they just looked at each other and went, "Yeah, it definitely is." And then but he picked up on this and then just went ultra camp and then went, "Yes, I am." Right. And then just had this kind of laugh with it all. And then just thought, "Oh my God, this is my character." And ever since then, he's been Jeff Hobson that you've seen again and again and again. It's like sort of, Liberace style magician. He's just so over the top. But he found his character. For me, I sort of looked at all different genres of magic. But because I started working with Simon in the early years, especially of my infancy, I mean, Simon got me my first close-up gig. And I guess because of the way that I look, you know, I've got the widow's peak. It's not theatrical. This is just natural.
Max Maven tribute.
Well, you know what's funny? Jay Sankey did a lecture at the Magic Circle, and I'm talking like in the late 90s. And he pointed to me in the audience. He goes, "Oh, look, Max Maven's illegitimate son." And no one knew who I was at the time, but yeah, so I get the Max Maven reference because of mentalism and everything else. But but yeah, no, I kind of just was working with Simon, and Simon just said to me, he goes, you should really do this for a living, because I was illustrating at the time, and just with a really massive keen interest in magic, but like, I was really devoted to it, but just never had aspirations to be. I didn't know how you do it. I mean, how do you go out and do magic? And it's thanks to Simon that he kind of showed me how to do that. And Simon just said to me, he goes, you should definitely do this stuff. He goes, you're so good at it. You kind of look like the sort of person that could read minds or bend spoons and all that kind of stuff. And then we did a radio spot in London. Simon's got a venue called the House of Magic, which is in South London. And he was promoting it on the radio. And they said, oh, can you do some magic tricks? And Simon was like, on the radio? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm a stage magician. And he looked at me and just said, could you do something? And I went, well, I could do some mind reading bits. And we ended up going on the radio. We had a 15-minute spot. Hey, Simon, what you doing? Halloween special at the House of Magic. Great. Magic trick. See you later. Thanks very much. We were on there for 50 minutes because I said, can we get some callers on? Because it's a talk radio, LBC in London. And they just had callers phoning up, and I was just doing stuff like book tests, Larry Becker's stuff, but just getting people to call up and say page numbers and things like that, and doing it with Pete Murray, who was the host on the show. And then at the end of it, Simon just went to me, I never knew that you could do that stuff. Like, why are you not doing this? So that's kind of how I ended up being the mentalist. But always having, like, you know, a bit of an affair with magic. I mean, all types of magic, you know, bill switches and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of got me into the magic, the mentalism, and the sort of slightly darker side working with Simon, because he had that edge. But then in truth, like, what changed was when Tessa was diagnosed with cancer in 2015, I was actually going to enter Britain's Got Talent. In 2015, halfway through the year, you kind of have to, if you're intending to go on Britain's Got Talent in, say, like 2016, you've got to kind of plan it in 2015, because then all the auditions start happening in January, but nothing gets aired on television until around April. So in my mind, I thought to myself, Jamie Raven, who's an old friend of mine, had just come second on the show. And I thought, you know what, I really just should take a punt at doing Britain's Got Talent. If I just do some really cool mentalism, they've not really had it. Colin McLeod had done a little piece on there, but you know, like, it'd been a while, and I thought, no, you know, Jamie Raven, great magician, done really well on the show, but maybe that's the angle that I can approach and just do something a bit more mentalism, more traditional. And then I all geared to do it. Then Tessa, and if I'd have done it back then, I would have gone on as Marc Spelmann Mind Reader. It would have been branded as Mind Reader. I would have probably gone on tattoos out and, you know, black shirt, waistcoat, and just done the Mind Reader thing. And but then when Tessa was diagnosed, everything stopped. It was just like, you know, wow, this is serious, because she was pregnant as well. Yeah. So it just became that, like, literally handbrake on, everything stopped. I phoned up all my agents, all the people that were getting me work. I was just going, look, I'm taking myself off the radar. I'll fulfill the gigs that I've got. I had a couple of other people that helped me out and fulfilled some gigs where I'd have to be away for a period of time, and they covered for me. And I literally did not perform. I would say I've probably done about, in a 2-year period, maybe just under 2 years, I probably did about 8 gigs, which, you know, like, you do 8 gigs, kind of like December time, you're doing, you know, 16 gigs, 17 gigs, whatever you're doing in December, however it works for you. But that was, you know, like, in a bad month for me, I'd be doing maybe 3 or 4 gigs, you know, but to do 8 gigs in that space of time, it was, you know, nothing. And it was only like close by, absolutely requested that I be the person they wanted to book. And I thought, I can nip there and get a bit of money and come home and be with Tessa. And then it came up to, like, Tessa sort of went onto the road of recovery, and it was a long process. I mean, really long process. And even when they sort of, even once you finished having your last chemo or radiotherapy, you still live with cancer. It never leaves you. Like, even now, Tessa's clear of cancer, but it's like it's in the corner of the room, and you're just thinking, just stay in the corner of the room. Please don't come back again. So it's still with you. But I then, Tessa said to me, what are you going to do about work? And I was like, and she said, why don't you just get back on, I'm in a much better place. And then I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to do Britain's Got Talent. And that was when it all changed. But I thought, I'm not going to do Britain's Got Talent as Marc Spelmann, the mind reader. I'm just going to do it as Marc Spelmann, the dad. Like life had changed, and it was like, I'm just going to do it as me. And my whole thing was, it wasn't supposed to be a mentalism piece, although obviously it has flavorings of mentalism because of the pre-recorded prediction. Oh, look, it was all there, before, kind of thing. But it wasn't really about it, because I even downplay that, and a lot of people sort of kind of missed the point. And that is, at the end of that routine, I say, look, if I told you I knew this outcome yesterday, a week ago, or a month ago, some of you would think that was amazing, but it's not. It's interesting, it's clever, it's whatever my line was. And then that's when I say, this is real magic, and then I play the video, and it's not real magic the tricks, it's real magic the child, and life. So that's where it just changed for me. And I knew that I didn't want to do that in a theatrical sense. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go in my ordinary clothes, I'm just going to be me. And I like, when the video played, it was one of the most surreal things, because you got to remember, I edited that video together. So I filmed Isabella with the Rubik's Cube and like the red crayon and all that kind of stuff. And, all shot on an iPhone, edited it together. And I'd watched that video with all the words and everything else. I probably watched it, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 times before I actually went, the final one, you kind of refine it and stuff like that. And remember the 4.5 minutes that they put, can you do it in 4.5 minutes? It's like, wow. Yeah. And then when that video played, it was the first time I was watching that video with strangers. Like, Tessa had seen it because she'd got a vibe as what I was going to do, and I wanted to let her, I wanted to be fully aware of what I was doing. But I was watching it in the London Palladium Theatre with 2,500 people, and the audible gasps when the story came up, you don't hear that so much on the audition, but being in the theatre, it was just like this deadly silence. And just, you felt the whole dynamic changed in that theatre in that moment. And then you just heard the applause when it was like, about Tessa's recovery and Isabella was born, and you see the pictures of Tessa and Isabella. And in that moment, I found it really hard. I'm facing that screen, but I've got the biggest lump in my throat where I'm going, and in my head, I'm thinking, wow. And then you got this, not conflict, but you've got this thing of like, I know I need to finish this and thank you and take that moment as a performer. But the other part of me is going, I just want to blub right now. Like, I'm really in this unique position that you can't rehearse a moment like that. You just can't. It creeps up on you. And so it was a surreal experience, but that's why there was such a contrast between Marc Spelmann, the mind reader mentalist, is a theatrical. I always say and I think Jeff Hobson probably instilled this in me in Vegas. He sort of said, just be a slightly exaggerated version of who you are.
Yeah.
And I am very into mentalism and some of the stories. I mean, God, we've got an hour here, but like seances that I set up when I was 16 or 17 years old that had people, genuinely believing that they'd just seen some other worldly stuff, and a true story. I won't go into it, it's too long, but a story where 5 of my friends went and got blessed at church, at a Greek church. A lot of my friends were Greek Cypriots, and they got blessed in a church because they went home and told their parents. They were petrified about this seance that they'd taken part in, and genuinely went and got blessed at a church. So I love all that kind of quirkiness. I love Andy Kaufman, the comedian. I love that sort of looking at things from outside the box and thinking differently about things. So for me, mentalism, that sort of slightly darker, edgier, unpredictable, slightly unnerving side was really, I loved it. And that's why I loved working with Simon, because Simon was unlike any other magician. You know, like
Yeah.
you had Paul Daniels, a great of magic, and sadly missed. And you had Wayne Dobson on ITV, again, very commercial, fantastic, brilliant Saturday night magicians who deserved everything that all the successes that they had. But then you had this Simon Drake on Channel 4, and that was just cool. I remember him sticking a knife through his arm to this weird, bizarre music at the Hackney Empire for all these kind of alternate looking people, and just thinking, God, I like this guy. And I'm lucky enough that I got to work with him, you know. So there was a massive influence from Simon, but I think a lot of that oddness was in me as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then with Isabella, and now I kind of get to go back to being a bit odd, because when I walk out on stage as X, you know, I mean,
More character driven again. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Now, but like even weirder. Just
I'm wearing all black again, which is always nice.
wearing all black and just doing weird stuff, giving people electric shocks. just you know. So
it is the kind of like a bit of a meme where you see the like dark performer with the tattoos and the like black shirts, and then has a baby and shows up wearing like slacks and a jumper.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, that's me all day.
I'm gonna get jumpers and slacks soon, Dave. I promise.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Steve just had a baby, so he's gonna have to change his style completely now to be the dad.
Oh, bless. Yeah, bless you. How old's your little one, Steve?
15 weeks now, Michael.
Oh, bless. Congratulations. Is that your first?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations, mate. Congratulations. Honestly, it is. It's the best thing in the world. I mean, listen, look, before children, I had that, and after, you know, so whatever, you know. But no, honestly,
awesome.
It's the best thing. And I'll tell you this, and everyone will say it to you, and it's a cliche, but it just flies by. And I tell you, you'll be like year 1, year 2, year 3, and then you'll look at Michael in 4 years from now, and you'll remember this exact conversation. You'll go, I remember Spelmann told me. You're right. It's just gone. It's like, where is the time going?
Khaki slacks and a pink jumper. I'm like, fuck, what happened?
I doubt it. I doubt that, Steve. I doubt that.
Dave probably.
Yeah, I'll end up like that. But do you know when, like, what I loved as well with the stuff that, as you're saying, you didn't get to finish it after the semi-final and then come back as X and do the, like, reveal in the final. I think, like, I rewatched that final performance last night, and that crowd reaction when you do the reveal and, like, you're trying to speak and it just keeps, like, screaming over you and you're trying to get out, like 4.5 minutes of sticking, guys. Come on, I need to get my words out.
Oh, yeah, do you know... it was an incredible moment. It was it's really funny because as well, I've learned so much from this particular period of my life. If you think about it, like when obviously with everything that Tessa went through, you know, I would never, if I would never go back and want that to happen again. But I am a better human being because of that. I think I'm far more chilled, far more, you know, I love my career. Obviously, there are things that I want to achieve and do in life. But I think before Isabella and before everything we went through, I think I was really like heavily focused, like blinkers on, life whizzing by, just going, that's my goal. That's it. And sometimes not stopping to actually take a moment to look around and just kind of go, no, just wait a minute, just hold on. This is like, there's stuff here that we need to, you know, enjoy and appreciate. So I think that's something that's drastically changed in my life. Equally, I think that I think it's just even BGT, like I had that massive moment in the audition and then didn't make it through to the final. I got to the semi-finals and I fell short. And I always say this, I feel as though I've become a lot more humble since, you know, I would have hated to admit that I fell short before, you know, all of this. You know, I would have gone, well, that's just unfair. It's like, yeah, well, they don't know what they're talking about. And I would have had a bit more of that, not horrible, but just protective, maybe putting barriers up to protect yourself from that rejection or whatever it might be. But I think afterwards, like now, when I look at my semi-final, I don't know if you saw it, but I had these big canvases and I did a picture of John Lennon and then it turned into Gandhi at the end. And the prop itself is completely original. So that was, I designed the whole thing. It was made in America and shipped over. And I remember Russ Stevens, who's a magic consultant on there, he just went to me and goes, brilliant. I did a little mock-up of this and all working, and sent it to the guy in America who built the prop. So the prop worked brilliantly. It was it worked well. The idea was clever, you know, putting these pieces together to form a, you know, but it just didn't flow. It didn't have its flow. It wasn't worked in, and it was much more of a performance rather than my first piece, which was based around truth, if that makes sense. So my first piece was based around fact and truths and experience. Isabella, all of those elements, the red crayon, the Rubik's Cube, the penguin, the puppet penguin is her favorite toy. Tessa was reading the Harry Potter books throughout a lot of her chemotherapy and stuff. So all of those items had a real relationship with me and made sense. So it was almost like I'm telling you a real story. Whereas when I did the semi-final, fundamentally, it was a good piece, but it is like a pair of shoes. I needed, you know, if I'd have done that in a corporate gig, great, fine, you know, finish off on a real big finale or whatever. But you'd want to work that in for like 2, 3, 4 months minimum before you then put it on TV and go, this is the polished, refined version. And there were even some parts to that we were changing at the 11th hour. Like literally the producers were sort of going, do you think you should add a little bit with Simon and stuff like that? And they're not saying it to mess you up. They really want you to do well. And they really wanted me in the final. But one of the things that I really learned from this, and it was from falling in that semi-final and then coming back as X. And I said this, I was on this morning with Philip and Holly. I don't know if you get that in Ireland. But I remember I just said to Philip, I said, you know, if you'd have said to me, were you glad that you didn't make it through to the final that year in 2018? I'd have gone, what, are you crazy? I'm gutted. I really, not to win it, but I had another piece that was going to be like, ta-da, with a couple of hidden elements in it, like the hope and stuff like that was all in there. And I never got to do it. And it's like setting up a great trick for your best client. And then they go, sorry, we're going to have to cut it 10 minutes short. And you're going, no, I want to finish, you know, but I couldn't do it. But then I came back as X. And if I'd have made it to the final, that would have been my journey. It would have been, you know, great, whatever, you know, and that would have been it. For me, I genuinely believe my greatest achievement that I don't think I will never top it. I don't think I can. I don't know what I would do to top it. I mean, God, resurrecting Jesus Christ or bringing back Andy Kaufman or something like that, taking the mask off and it's Andy Kaufman underneath the mask. I think that's the only way that I could top it, you know. But actually, that's not a bad shout. I wonder if we get a lookalike.
You can get a hologram.
Yeah, there you go. It's actually, you know. But you know, I genuinely believe that X is my greatest achievement in magic. You know, I've loved all the other things that I've done, but X is just the reason why I'm so proud of X is nothing else is like it. So as a mind reader, you can kind of say, oh yeah, a bit like Darren Brown. If I did street magic or something like that, you can say, oh yeah, a bit like David Blaine. There's so many a bit like that you can do. The closest reference X has got to anyone is horribly the Masked Magician, which is just, but he's not a magician. He's just, you know, that is just, you know, that's, I've actually reclaimed the mask. Go away. You're forgotten. I'm the one with all the views on YouTube now. So when we think of a masked magician, we kind of think of X, which is far better. But so I'm so glad that I fell. I learned so much from that. You know, that's what life's about. You know, it's like you can have these incredible highs, but then bam, you can come flying down. And I did. I literally went into obscurity. I had this massive success with that audition. I then did the semi-final and then came back home and that's it. Is that it? Great. You know, and then my brain just had to go, right, no, that's not it. There's got to be something else I can do here. I've got a brain. Let's use it. Let me think, how can I make this, how can I change this? And that's when I sat down and I just saw incognito, like no one knows who it is. And just Ant and Dec are like the connection with the audience, if you like, is Ant and Dec. They're two iconic TV presenters. That's going to go in my favor. But also the whole performance is not about me. It's about everyone, about how we're connected as human beings, how amazing we are, and that kind of thing. And that's still, there's a piece in my act it's called Life. And it is literally a small, it's about 4.5 minutes long, but it's about life. But at the end of it, my goal is, if I do it right and I give it the justice it deserves, rather, is that at the end of that performance piece, I want people to reevaluate some of the things that they're doing in their lives, where they just sit back and just go, forget the trick, like just wow. I did this thing years ago. Sorry, and shut me up, all right? Because I know we're probably running.
We can go over
right?
time.
But
I have nothing else to do, so
I did this thing. I promise you, I won't keep you for long. I haven't got any whiskey left, so it's all gone downhill at my end. But I did this thing with Anthony Robbins, who is the coach, the guru.
Yeah,
Tony Robbins. So he comes over to the UK. He travels all around the world, does these big things. I mean, like, you're talking like 5,500 people at some of these events, like the Excel Centre in London and stuff. It's like massive. And I did one, and this was, ironically, this ties in actually. When I was coming out of dealing with all of Tessa's cancer and everything, Tessa actually said, go and do this Tony Robbins thing. Just go. It's 3 days of, like, it might be a bit happy clappy and jump around and cheer. And she knows I'm very, very analytical of those things. I'm very sarcastic. Like, I'll be the guy that's like just videoing everyone going, this is a cult. Get me out. Right. But so I went, and it was a little bit, hey, you guys are great, you're the best, we can do this, and loads of music and stuff like that. But I get where it's almost like having a bit of a psychological injection of over energy. It's like you've just had far too much sugar, but it clearly does inspire people. So I'd never discredit it. I mean, they're quite expensive, but if you get a chance, go along just for the experience of going, wow, you lot are nuts, right? But there's one thing that he did, right? And it was really, really amazing, right? And this is kind of like, it has inspired some of the things that I would do as X. So for that reason alone, it was worth I think it was like £2,500 to do this thing, right? I wonder where he gets his money from.
Some conductors for that.
How is he a millionaire? I wonder. Anyway, so there was this bit where he said, everyone stand up, right? So from a psychological point, this is really good knowledge for anybody that performs any kind of mentalism or stage show. And that is, psychologically, our attention span runs for about 12 minutes, right? Where you can have good focal thing. And this is why they have breakouts. When you have these corporate days where they've got these, what do you call it? Presentation things on the screen. What do they? What's the word thing that they do? You know what I mean? Like the
keynotes.
Keynote speeches where they have the constant, like, the things on the screen. Sorry, my brain is really mashed today. But so what they suggest is that every 12 minutes, especially if you're a lecturer or a motivational speaker, but also it applies to our world as well. And that is, every 12 minutes, you get people to change their dynamic. And that is from a position of this or whatever, get them to change the dynamic. Everyone jump up on your feet for me. And Darren uses this a lot of the time, where he'll get everyone to stand up and he'll do a trance-like thing. And then people will slowly, if you're not feeling it, sit down, and eventually it has like 4 or 5 people standing and he'll do something. A lot of that is to get people up out of their seats. So Anthony Robbins does this a lot throughout the course of his 3-day course. Anyway, so he said to everyone, so everyone stood up, and he said, I want you to close your eyes. So we all close our eyes. And now you imagine, I mean, the set on these things is immense. The lighting, the sound, the production is huge. And it just goes, I want you to imagine a warm light. And you could just, even with your eyes closed, you feel that the room now, they've just upped these red lights and it's just glowing. And then he goes, when the light goes down, I want you to see yourself in darkness, but then I want you to picture yourself in a void of blackness. But his wording was brilliant. It was beautifully scripted. And he said, and in that moment, I want you to see a snippet from your life. It could come in the shape of a picture. It might be a moving image as a movie, but I want you to see it. And they had this beautiful music playing in the background. It was like hypnotic. And he said, I want it to be one of the most positive moments from your life. It might be something from your childhood, whatever. So then now I do. I mean, I've just gone through all this stuff with Tessa. So obviously my emotions are really heightened anyway. And I saw my godfather. My godfather died when he was 40, like back in like 1993. I was really close with him. It was because of him that I kind of always carried on pursuing magic. He always sort of pushed me and told me to follow what I loved, not just what I was good at, which was the illustration. And I saw my godfather, and then he goes, just see that moment, let it irradiate in your mind, feel what's in your heart. So you kind of just go, you know, and you're getting a bit like, wow, your eyes are still closed. And he goes, right now, he goes, see yourself going back to that light and seeing that light. And then now darkness again. You see another clip and another clip. And it's 3 clips. And at the end of it, he said, open your eyes. And then now everyone was in tears. But like not like blubbering messes, but everyone had been touched. This emotion was immense. And he said, whenever you feel like it's one of those days where you're not feeling it. It goes, close your eyes. You don't need to be here. You don't need to be with me. Close your eyes and see those 3 clips. And I just found that profound. I thought it was brilliantly done. Like, I mean, it was theatrical. It had the music, had all the things. But sometimes, like, you need those things. You need that music, you know. And this is another quick thing as well. Sorry, David, just because I know you're a bit more mentalism than you, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, you'll know about the power of music in your escapology and stuff like that. But I'm a firm believer in music and mentalism shows. I really, not all the way through, but I have key moments in the sort of the last few shows I did before Tessa was diagnosed. I started really incorporating music into my mentalism shows because, you know, music is such a fundamental part of performance. Watch a film without the music. It's totally different. You know, so so that was just one of those key moments, and that's the kind of angle that I'm going with X. And I kind of did for Britain's Got Talent. Was I don't really want it to be about me, you know. It's like magic, ooh, you know. I think X is. I just think it's so nice for it to be about people, and just have a deeper message than just wow, that's amazing. How did he do that? Obviously, you want that. But at the same time, like, wow, that was really profound. That made me...
I think, like, Alicia Dixon's quote after your first audition when you got the Golden Buzzer of, like, I never expected magic to make me feel this way. She was like, it was like one of those quotes. And I think like that's the sort of thing where sometimes magic can be this powerful thing where you can almost be used by people like Tony Robbins stuff, might use a bit of magic technique to get their point across. And then a lot of times we just go, oh, this is a cool trick. And it can become even a bit trivial when it has the power to make people cry and feel emotions.
You know, I think it's a real the real challenge with that kind of magic. The real challenge, and this is something going back to kind of what Jeff Hobson said about just being a slightly exaggerated version of yourself. I've got a really good friend of mine. There's a guy called Alex Crow, not Aaron Crow, Alex Crow, right? So Alex Crow is a mind reader in the UK. I don't know if you're familiar with Alex Crow, right? But he's a mind reader in the UK, does really well on the corporate scene. Great mind reader, and a really good friend of mine. But Alex goes kind of a bit of a dark style. So Alex is bald, but he's a bit, not so much now actually. He's kind of lightened up a little bit. But he went through this whole sort of stage of being Alex Crow, like the Crow, Alistair Crow, that kind of tie-in. You know, it was a bit dark. But when I became friends with Alex, like 5 or 6 years in, he turned around to me and went, "Yeah, you know, so that was when I was a policeman." And I was like, "You was a what?" He was like, "That's when I was a policeman." And in my mind, I think, oh my God, why are you being this dark Alex Crow? There's no mind reader out there who's a policeman.
Yeah.
Do you get one point? So
Yeah.
be a slightly exaggerated version of who you are. And I think the more you take from reality, the better it is. So when I perform as X, everything that X said on BGT, all of those quotes, all of those things, all of it comes from me. I love quotes, but a lot of the time I read a quote and I go, actually, I can, there was one that I said to my mum today. My mum she's nearly 70, right? She's just got herself a 2-day job because she's bored. And I said to her today, let me just find it. She walks a bit slow, but she's getting this job and it's down in the center of London. I'm sort of like half an hour away from the center of London. And I just said to her, I think it'd be really good for you in terms of all of your movement, all of the, just like being 70 years old. And then I said this and she said to me, oh my God, that's beautiful. Where did you get that from? I went, just from my head. So it says, the limitations of what we can achieve can often be governed by the limitations of what we are doing. And my point when I said that to my mum was, is that sometimes we think, oh, well, I can't do that because you're not doing it. My mum would go, oh, darling, I get tired walking up the stairs. Well, now she's going to go down to Liverpool Street and be on the escalators and walking around the streets of London, getting down to the underground and stuff like that 2 days a week. And that was my point. Sometimes how we limit ourselves. So, so a lot of so even when I perform as X, of course, it's a way exaggerated version of myself. I'm in a mask and everything else. But everything that I'm trying to convey and everything that I'm saying, I genuinely mean. Like, I really do think that as human beings, we all have the capability to be great at something. The saddest thing is that a lot of the time, 95% of the population never get the chance to work out what that was. Because of life, circumstance, jobs, expectations. In a way, we're lucky because, Steve, you escape from stuff. So you're doing something that you clearly love. That's not, if you wanted to have a really sensible, viable job, you might be working in IT or, I don't know, something like that, or whatever, same thing with you, David. If I wanted a really stable, sensible job, I would have been a graphic designer and illustrator working in a studio from 9 till 6 down in Covent Garden somewhere in the center of London. And that would have been the sensible thing. But our circumstances have allowed us to explore and find the thing that we really love doing. And just, it's sad that a lot of people don't get that chance. And therefore that I always think to myself, it's just sad that some people might have, there's brilliance in all of us potentially, that, just the untapped potential of human beings is sad, really sad.
Michael and Marc said something quite similar to that when he was on. He was just saying today, if you have a skill set that isn't magic and you fuse it with your magic is going to be stronger because it's really who you are. You're not putting on a character at that point. Then you're just an extension of yourself, and whatever you're is coming through your magic. So people they're going to gravitate towards it, because sometimes I suppose people have the idea of, oh, the magician is just going to fool me and that's it. Yeah. But if you can be more human about it and make the magic about them, like what you did with X.
Yeah,
they're going
100%.
to. If you don't like magic, you can understand the human connection.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's lots of different things. I mean, like someone like a Jeff Hobson is a really good magician, but hilarious. I mean, really, really funny. Graham Jolly, as a mentalist, Graham Jolly does really good, solid mentalism, like really good, solid mentalism. But I guarantee you, when he finishes a performance, I think most people they probably remember a few of the things that he's done, but he's so funny, so dry, so kind of controversial in some of the things that he says, that it's just brilliant. It's great theatre. So I think there are some cases where you can be completely different to. There's a really interesting thing in Ken Webber's book, Maximum Entertainment. And Ken was the head of the Psychic Entertainers Association, right? The PEA. And he, in his book, Maximum Entertainment, he talks about why someone like Kreskin had the worldwide and longevity success when compared to someone like Max Maven. And Max, Phil Goldstein, is an incredible, like he's like the godfather of mind reading. Like, you know, he's
Yeah.
you know, he's incredible. But when you look at someone like Kreskin, who comes on as a bit of a more of a sort of slightly not geeky, that sounds derogatory, but quirky, normal guy who might have this very high intellect, who can do these quirky things and like amazing. The adjustment level that you have as a human being to relate to him, as opposed, oh yeah, he's kind of quirky, a bit like maybe a Svengali. He's got like, you know, a few extra brain cells than I have or whatever, you know, higher IQ. But then when Max Maven comes on, now it's like there's a very theatrical appearance that comes, which I think is a bit of a barrier. And Ken Webber says this in Maximum Entertainment. It's a bit of a barrier between Max, he's brilliant mind reading, and the audience being able to connect with him maybe in a way because of that. But then Max loves that whole persona, you know, that's him. So you've kind of, you know, if he's happier performing as that, then you forfeit maybe the success. Simon Drake doing The Secret Cabaret was never going to be on BBC One at 7 o'clock in the evening because of the material and the style that he chose. But artistically, that's where he was satisfied and still is, you know, I mean, brilliant. Yeah. And so I think that there are those questions, but fundamentally, I think someone like Bill Malone doing just great magic, no real meaning to it, but he is entertainment. And I think it depends. There are some films you watch because they are just hilariously funny. There are some films you watch because they're just cinematic masterpieces for the eyes, but storylines a little bit thin on the ground. And then other times you'll get some film that might be like a low budget film that you go, geez, that was just, I was gripped the whole way through. So I think the same thing applies to being an entertainer in magic. Is like, you know, there's no one size fits all. But if you are going to be a psychological mind reader, at least know your psychology. Like, make sure you do. And for me, being X, clearly massive theatrical. And there's loads of gigs that I wouldn't get as X. But I'm lucky that I can come out and go, well, I can do it if you don't fancy him, you know. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. But I love performing as X, and I realize it's not going to be right for everyone. But there are some gigs that I'm happy that other people can do those gigs. But I love the gigs that I get as X, you know, over really any gigs that I do as myself now. I love the whole vibe of X. So yeah, I think it's important to retain that kind of retain part of you in your performance, regardless of how weird it is. It might be just a tiny bit of your sense of humor. With Max, it might be his theatrical. I mean, Max is, you know, has a massive history with Japan and the Far East and that kind of thing. So you can kind of get that kind of look and that vibe when some of the Japanese kind of, I don't know the name of the clothing, but, you know, that style of clothing. And then you look at someone like Jeff McBride as well. I love Jeff. Really, I'm proud to say that Jeff's a friend. But again, Jeff would go from mime and all that, but it's not forced. He loved mime. That's part of him. So yes, it's quirky in performance, but it is there's a reflection of him, and that's what I think sometimes we miss. So I think, as a mind reader, I'm much more. I'd never ever claim to be a psychological illusionist. I always left it open because I was always a mind reader that loved that idea of, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, because I think that even with Derren Brown, when you watch Derren, you know, it got to a point where people are going, I don't think you can do that with body language. That just seems a little bit advanced. And the truth is, it was, you know, you couldn't do all of it with it. Some you can. There are certain things that you can, but, you know, so I think it's always important to kind of retain a sense of realism in what you're doing, even if you're an absolute, like Graham Jolly, when he comes out and does good, solid mind reading, that Graham Jolly that says those things to the audience and gets those laughs, that's part of Graham Jolly. Like, not everyone can do that. He's made that choice. And again, that might not fit for certain gigs where they're going, he was just rude, but he's not. You kind of just didn't get it. So yeah, so
Yeah, we got some questions sent in actually during the week. So there's one that could be expected. Did you have any advice for someone who wants to do BGT?
yes, yes. Okay, I'll keep it concise because this is like we should do quick fire stuff. So first of all, plan for all 3 stages. So many people going, but I knew what I wanted to do first, second, third. If I made it to the final, I knew what I was doing, obviously, because I set it up in the first one. But plan as though you're going to go all the way. Otherwise, if you think, well, I might not make it, well, so what? You might not. You might. You know, I was expected to go all the way in the year that I did it in 2018, and I didn't. So the other way, the shoe can fit the other way around. You might not think you're going to make it, but you will. So plan all 3 stages. If you can link them. If you can utilize skills that you've got from before, that's going to be better. That's going to go in your favor. It's much easier, you know, sort of sitting on stage and playing the piano, having had a little bit of piano practice before, rather than sort of just going, well, okay, better start learning the piano for the, you know what I mean? It's like, it's better to draw from previous experience. And that's where I fell down in the, like for me going on as X and doing PK touches, I've done PK touches loads. It was a bit of a challenge doing it with a pre-recorded voice, but PK touches and all the elements to it and the drawings and having everything match up, been there, done that, like many, many times. So yeah, so know what you're doing, and also practice. When I practice my routine, the audition piece for BGT, I remember I said to Russ, like, you know, what do I need to know? And he said to me, right, the desk is way longer than you think it is. They are spaced apart like a person and a bit width apart, which you don't always get that vibe. And when you're standing there and you realize that if you're doing something with David, to get to Simon is a bit of a walk along a thin platform. So learn those silly things. And then Russ said to me, if you imagine walking from the middle of the Palladium stage to the judge's desk, in terms of your dialogue, it will take you, I think we worked it out, it's like 15 seconds from the center to there. So don't, you know, make sure it fits, use the time wisely, don't, you know, whatever, you know. So it's things like that. But then when I rehearsed the act, I had my dining room table and a wallpaper paste table by the side to mimic the length of the desk. And I had Isabella's cuddly toys on chairs for Simon, Alicia, and I spoke to them like they were there. Like I didn't half do it. I didn't, oh yeah, so I go up and I do that, and then I go over here and do that, and I go over here and do that. I did it. Like I walked up and, Simon, do me a favor, please. Just Alicia, say stop anywhere you like and take the pen, Simon, but did everything. Like, where are my hands? What am I doing? I've got the book at that point. Where do I put the pen? And it's all these kind of small details that make a difference. And then once you've got it, once you've kind of got the meat, you know, it's like you got to think of every magic trick you do is a recipe. There are so many different components, seasoning and garnishes and things that you're going to add to this to make it work. And it's only if it's all together and timed to perfection that it's going to be a good meal. Same thing applies to your act. And also, just if you can say it with 3 words, say it with 3 words. One of my worst habits in the past is that you can get that I can talk. I mean, like we're an hour and 18 minutes, and you know we've only scratched the surface. But yeah, so you know, like that was a real learning, and that's Russ really helped me with that. Like Russ was just like, you've kind of said that twice. Why not just narrow that down to that? And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. And he really helped me shave a lot of it off because I wanted it to be clear, you know, like I had a really important thing that I needed to say. And really for me, my audition act was get everything done, keep your mouth shut, play the video, because that was the most important part to me. Yeah. So yeah.
Were you ever worried about, because I did Ireland's Got Talent before, and the one season before it got cancelled, and my biggest fear was accidentally hitting a buzzer while I was like standing at the table.
You know what?
being
I did
like,
not
"Oh, God."
even, that didn't enter my mind whatsoever. Not
Yeah,
at all.
just hit the golden one when no one's looking.
Yeah, I just had, I just gaffed the golden buzzer. But no, I didn't even think of that. In all honesty, and it's weird because now you mention that, I do remember going up to the table and thinking, well, there's a glass of water there and a cup of tea there, and I'm like, I'm about to do an act. It's like I didn't have these things on my wallpaper paste table. So it's all of those little things. But the most important thing is know it until you are so bored of it.
Yeah.
And I would go over my lines and my script and things like that in the car. I'd be stuck on London. I don't know how many times you guys have been to London, but we have a motorway around London. It's called the M25. It's just notorious. So I'll be like on the M25 stuck in traffic. And in those moments, I think to myself, right, okay, so that's where I would go over my mnemonica, like just memorize deck. Boring, yeah, let's just do that. But then again, going over the script for my act on BGT, it's just like, well, I've got rehearsal time, so let's do it, and just do it again and again and again and again. So that would be my advice: just practice, practice, and practice.
For planning it out as well, did you have any thing like if X didn't get through the semi-final, would you have unmasked at the results this time, or would you have just kept it a mystery?
No, do you know what? There was part of me, and that was really interesting because I remember having a text message session with Tessa on the day of the semi-final. And obviously, the semi-finals of Britain's Got Talent is obviously I had it was a bit of an Achilles heel because I didn't make it the other time. So I really, in my mind, sort of thought I might not get through. I mean, the Instagram trick, and someone on the Magic Cafe really annoyed me because they came on and said, "Oh yeah, X is doing my trick." And I think, no, I wasn't doing your trick. I developed that trick completely on my own. So everyone knows of how it's done. It's out there in the ether.
He's probably 50 plus and still living in his man's basement, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I just thought to myself, God, you just no, excuse me. So anyway, but that trick went over really well. The thing with Simon choosing the word hope and then the picture behind him, I mean, that was getting that ready to perform was one of the hardest, I'm talking like I had so many outs and alternative things. Simon had lost, just to give you a bit of an insight, Simon had lost a lot of weight in between the audition and the semi-finals. Simon had lost a lot of weight. That photograph was taken just at the time of the auditions with Simon. Mm-hmm. So now you had the producers, you submit the trick that you're going to do. So I said, we submitted it. Colin was doing all my correspondence as my manager. And then this picture of me and Simon was sent and they went, oh yeah, we can't use that. Simon won't want that picture because he's lost a lot of weight now. And in my head, the prep work that went into it, I'm going, no, that's the picture that's going to be used. And we fought it tooth and nail. Can't we just set it up a different way? Can you not have a picture on the night of the semi-final? And I was, no way, not the way that works. Like, no way, no way. So there was loads of that kind of stuff going on. But yeah, so in answer to your question, David, I think if I don't know if that was a question externally, but I don't know. I had a text conversation with Tessa, just sort of saying, if I don't make it through, and they say, okay, guys, wish our contestants all the best. Hey, and I was debating whether or not I just walk over and take the mask off and just say thank you. It's a pleasure to be back again, and then walk off, and then everyone just go, what was that? Or do I just go off with the mask and just not say anything? I never decided. And I know that's a really coward's way out of answering that question, but I never decided. But then I won the semi-final and got through to the final. So it was a question that I never had to, but I don't know. In that moment of going, oh, not again, I might have just turned around and gone, whatever.
Screw you all.
Right, I'll come back next year as a dog, whatever, but I never had to answer that question. So true, I don't actually know. I don't actually know.
The other question we had sent in, two more. So, which one of your releases do you use the most? For me, I use your gallery deck the most.
I think for me, I think it would be the gallery too. Actually, there's something that I've not released actually, and I'm really debating about releasing it. Through the whole COVID thing, there was one sort of virtual trick that I was doing that I kind of developed, and it's I can tell you the name of it. It's called the invisible deck, because there is no deck, and it was just this presentation that I kind of worked out. I've used that extensively over the last year and however long it's been, year and 3 months or whatever it's been now, extensively. And I've loved using it. And it's been something that everyone talks about when I finish doing it. And it's perfect for virtual, but I actually was in development for real life shows as Marc Spelmann, just kind of doing, sort of quirky stuff. But no, the gallery I would say is because it's the most versatile. I can use it in any scenario. There's a bit even. I did a gig where I came out as Marc Spelmann at the start, and then and this was complicated. I walk out as Marc Spelmann at the beginning, and everyone goes, "Oh, it's the guy from Britain's Got Talent." Oh, great. And I did a piece, and I set up a piece with the gallery where I influence someone to think of a rose, which is one of the images, and X comes on, and like I say, ladies and gentlemen, my alter ego X, and X walks out on stage at the same time as me, but then the show continues, and then at the end of it, X finishes the act, and then I take the mask off at the end, and I'm X. So it's a weird kind of transposition-y weird thing, but I think some people don't even notice. They kind of go, yeah, that's it. And you kind of go, no, but no, that's it, whatever.
Great.
So that's, but yeah, I'd say the gallery.
Yeah. And what do you now perform impromptu when asked? Would it be like a PK touch or something like that?
Yeah, PK touch. I do PK touch. I do one which is, if you saw me do it, you would swear blind that I was using a hula hoop. Sounds like hula hoop, but you would swear blind that I was using one of those. But it's not, and it's just. And there's an Italian guy who's just come out with is it Angelo? No, D'Angelo's Touch. I might be getting this wrong, but but it's kind of based on his technique. But this is from someone called Marc Cairns many years ago, and it's just using really elegant movements. So that I do a lot of metal bending, and I do metal bending with really thick cutlery. I love metal bending. It's something that I've always done. I think animation, even as a mentalist, animation's really strong. A glass smashing, a haunted deck, slowly rubbing a spoon and it bending and stuff. I think just is really strong. So yeah, metal bending. I do blockhead, but I do it with screwdrivers and handles of spoons and stuff like that. Also, I do what do you call it? Oh God, the which hand? But it's verbal. You're using verbal. The
Tequila Hustler.
Yes, and there's obviously a number of versions of that as well. So that kind of thing. I do center things as well. I've got one of my favorite things to do is to ask someone I get someone to take some money out. And I've never published this either, but I ask someone to take some money out, roll it into a ball, put it behind their back, bring their hands out, and I do a whole sequence, not using any form of Tequila Hustler whatsoever, but I do this whole routine, and then at the end of it, I divine the number on there as well. But it's a really quirky technique. It's a very original technique to knowing which hand it's in, and I can get you to do it 7 times in a row, and I will get it every single time without fail. I'll tell you which hand it's in, and there's no gimmicks whatsoever. It is, you could leave halfway through and you've got your £5 note or whatever it is you've taken out of your wallet. So that's one of my favorite impromptu pieces to do as well.
Yeah, we'll wait for the release of that. So
Yes.
And then we have the segment which is the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is about a performance that maybe started off well and then went downhill pretty quickly.
Okay. I don't know of any that have. Okay, so I would say no. There was okay. So if you want a really good, I'll give you a good story, a real quick one. One of the best stories that I've got. Actually, I've got a few because I performed for quite a few people. So there's some really good stories. Like I performed for Eric Clapton twice.
Nice.
And I love Eric Clapton. He's lovely. He's really shy. Genius. I mean, obviously, an absolute god, right? And when I met him for the second time, it was before Britain's Got Talent. It was about 6 months before Britain's Got Talent. It was one of those gigs that I had to do because they'd requested me, and it was for the Ecclestons. So Bernie Eccleston owns Formula One, and they'd booked me to do this event because I'd done some stuff for his daughters. So his wife, it was her birthday. Anyway, so turn up, and I always turn up an hour earlier. And this was like just strolling, mix and mingle, no stage, mix and mingle in Knightsbridge in London, private room above a casino. And I'm walking around the table, and it's just like Jules Holland, Jerry Halliwell, Eric Clapton, and I'd met Jerry Halliwell before and performed for her at George Michael's house many, many years ago. And also met Eric Clapton, and I did Blockhead for Eric Clapton. So I thought he's got to remember that. So I walked up to Jerry Halliwell and said, Jerry, I don't know if you remember me. I did a magic show for you at George Michael's birthday party many, many years ago. And then Eric Clapton was there. And then Eric Clapton looked and went, oh my God, you did the thing with the nails. And I was like, hey, you remembered. So now I'm standing there talking to Ginger Spice, Jerry, who's really lovely. And I'm talking to Eric Clapton. And then I started doing a card trick. So I was just doing mix and mingle card stuff. So there's a routine that I do where I merge magic and mind reading, which a lot of people don't do, but I'm quite comfortable with certain types of magic. So I started doing this routine, and then Eric Clapton stopped me halfway through, held my hands, and he goes, you've got amazing hands when you're doing that with the cards. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Eric, you do know that you're a god with your hands on a guitar, right? It's like, this is like, and you're saying that I'm really good with the cards. So I've had some gigs like that where you walk away, you really felt like you made a difference, and people remember you. And that's one of the hardest things to do. It's different when you're a name or whatever, but I wasn't. I was just Marc Spelmann. Oh, we've had him for a couple of other parties. Let's have him again. And Eric Clapton remembered me, and you know, so those are good. I did one gig where I turned up at the venue. I've got to be careful about not going into too much detail because like the agent might recognize the gig. I turned up at this gig, and this is a piece of advice for anyone who's a mind reader. If you're not a mind reader, if you are a stage act and you turn up at a venue, before you turn up, always inquire about what do the table centers look like. Because I turned up at this gig and they had 10 people per table. And when I tell you, they had a mini tree in the middle of their table centers. Now, Joe Public watching us would go, what's the big deal about table centers? Well, you guys know, because you've done this, that half the table cannot see what you're doing. So you've got one half of the room that have got their backs to you. So they've all got to turn around to look at the stage, right? To look at you. The people that are seated facing the stage can't see you because there's a tree in the way, right? So now what does this mean? It now means that you are walking out on stage to an audience. This was 500 people. And most of them, I mean, I'm talking about maybe 100 of them are probably watching. The other 300 are a bit of this. Yeah, could you pass the butter? Yeah, lovely, great. I don't know. What's he saying? I can't see. Is there a TV screen that we could be looking at? No screens anywhere. Now, I did a job in Germany as X just before the pandemic. And that one, I said, what are your tables like? And they had these long tables. And I said, the only way that I'm doing this gig is I want TV screens everywhere in that room. And then my agent, Sam, wonderful agent, looks after me. He said, don't worry, it's done. Turned up, and they had these beautiful, like, screens that you could have been in the toilet and watched my act. There were screens everywhere. So then I had a room full of people that were hooked with the performance because they could engage. And I think sometimes people say, you know, there's no such thing as a bad audience. I think that's not true. You know, have like half the audience, you know, on narcotics or alcoholed up. That's a bad audience. It just is. There's no two ways about it. And they say that, there are no, a bad gig is your own fault. And in that environment, I just don't think it was. But the one area where I would criticize myself in that scenario would be that I should have had that. It was just learning to sort of go, no, I need to see what this room looks like. So that after that gig, I had a rider that went out. Before I did BGT, I had a rider that would go out to everything, and it would say, please make sure all table centers, if you want big elaborate table centers, no problem, but before the show starts, the waiting staff, like they would clear a table, someone will go and they'll take it and they'll put it over in the corner or the sides of the room, and you can put them back afterwards. But other than that, I'll go and do close-up mix and mingle if you want, but I'm not going to get on stage and do that again. But the bad was I went on stage, I thought, and also I had another clause, anyone else as well that's professional, you have a clause that if your performing requirements aren't kept, you can vacate and cancel that performance at full pay. And they have to have everything ticked off. That's it. I only had like 5 things on my rider. I didn't want M&M separated or anything like that. I just thought that I just want to do the best that I can for you. Work with me. Let's do this together. Have a great gig. And these are the things that I need, the fundamental things that I need. And I just never had the I guess maybe, you're kind of like, it is inexperience maybe, or a bit of naivety about, I can make it work. And I went on and tried to make it work. And it was just a losing battle to the point where they had some lord. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but they had a lord. And then he basically was sitting there and I could see him like this. It was so obvious. And I just thinking, oh, God. And then he sort of waved over to someone. True story. I mean, I'm telling you, like, this doesn't shine. Anyone that's watching this, like, who might be hiring me, I'm very good, right? So, anyway, so this guy comes over and he whispers. This lord kind of goes, yeah, it's like that. And then this guy sort of like commando, like SAS, creeping down in between the tables. And I'm there and I was doing some ESP routine with like 3 people on stage. And I'm sort of doing the thing. I could see this guy and I'm sort of going like that. And he's going, and I leaned over and I went, yep. I went, sorry, guys, just talk amongst yourselves. You are already. And I leant forward and this guy went, can you stop? Can you, Lord, whatever his name is, he's requested that you stop. So then I just went, okay. And I went back. I finished. I thought, I'm going to finish the act. I mean, like, you have to drag me off. I'm going to finish off this routine. And I went, ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. My time has been cut short. You've got some other activities going on. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. But all the people that were engaged at the front were like, oh, what? Hang on a minute. Because I'd set up a prediction. So they're all going, what about the... And I was like, no, that's... So that was it. So that is my bad. That's my bad and ugly. That is bad and ugly. Could I merge those two?
It's funny that you mentioned the table thing. I was doing a gig for Rolls Royce before, and it was a James Bond theme thing. They did a big ice sculpture right up the stage. The reason it was there is because it was a band that they didn't really need to see to one side, but they never took into account that they needed to stay. So they were like, we could try to move it, but it's like a ton. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably try to work in front of it. So I ended up having to like the stage on the dance floor and then delay everyone dancing afterwards.
Do you know what? I'm sorry, just to go on that as well. Another lesson learned as well, again, for anyone that's professional or kind of venturing onto the stage circuit, and that is, don't just ask for the stage size. I used to go, well, how big's the stage? And they'd go, oh, it's 4 meters wide by 2 meters deep. I'd go, brilliant, that's good enough. 4 people on stage, bit of this, bit of that. Yeah, brilliant, great, that's fantastic. And then I'd turn up and the whole band is on the stage. And I go, oh, right. So then I changed my rider to Marc Spelmann will require 4 meters by 2 meters deep of clear, no cables, no microphone stands, absolutely nothing, clear space. And I lost a few gigs because I was adamant about it, but I'd rather just do the gigs where they're actually going to care and just get it right. But yeah, so that's another, yeah, so just make sure, like, because you do end up getting pushed onto the dance floor, and then and I know the minute you're on the dance floor, now there's no elevation. I'm only 5'8". So, if you're doing a chair test on the dance floor, it's lost on everyone because everyone's sitting down. So, what can you do?
I remember doing a wedding.
Massive ice thing was behind me, and I was like, any minute that's going to fall on me. I was just like,
oh, totally. Is it melting? It's like,
I did an after dinner wedding show, and there was the on the raised stage was fine. The bride and groom's table was like on it as well, but there was space in front, so like that'll work. And then 5 minutes into my show, they started clearing the tables off the dance floor.
Oh,
so my entire audience vanished.
That's another one. Sorry, you've just hit another one as well. Again, another one. Got to hope people are taking notes, right? That is no clearance of table. They either clear before you perform or they clear after. And even when you say that, because what they'll do is you'll get some event companies that say, oh, what we do is we'll get them to clear just before you go on. And the problem with that is if that meal overruns, you're then going to be pressured just before, you're trying to get into performance mode right before they're going, is there any way that you could go on like now, because we're just so overrunning and they're still eating their desserts. And you kind of just go, but be adamant. No. There can be no table clearance and no consuming of food. Like whenever I did a stage, I used to say to people, and still even now, when we get back at it, but it's that whole thing of like people who go, well, we really want the stage act, but is there any way that you could do it through the starter? And I go, no, there's no way of me doing it through the starter. Here's the deal. If you want, I'll do a little, because I don't mind doing a bit of, even now, I don't mind doing mix and mingle at a drinks reception, because one of the best things about doing any mix and mingle, if you're going on a stage, is you find the people that you want to use. Not necessarily because you're going to pre anything, but you just find the people. And then now I'd go around. I'd go, what's your name? Brilliant, Brian, great. And then now I'd make a note. I'd go, all right, nice to see you, Brian. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed that. And I'd walk off, get a business card out of the pocket, write down Brian or whatever his surname is on a card, stick it in my top pocket. And then now when I do my corporate set, rather than my stage set, rather than having to go, could you join me? And then going, oh no, he's got a Zimmer frame, right? No, not you. Could you join me? No, you're petrified. No, you're too keen. And having that conflict, what I would do is I'd say, look, guys, just to give, and this is a little tip for getting people out of the audience, right? I would say just before my performance, we wanted to kind of incorporate as many people in the audience as possible. However, we didn't want to necessarily just choose like key directors or the people at the front here. So what we've done is I haven't seen this list. This list has been generated by the event organizers. All of this is absolute nonsense. Generated by the event organizers. They've literally got all the names, put them into a bowl, and we've got 6 or 7 people that we get. So if I call out your name, please come up on stage, because it's just gonna waste time. Okay, so please do come up on stage. And we've been given that list. And so could Brian come up on stage, please? And it'd be Brian who's met me. So Brian's not got any hesitation about coming up because he's met me. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, this guy's great. Comes up on stage. But I know this guy's great. He's great to work with. He's good fun, whatever, And now it just feels like I've got this random list generated, but this is my homework that I've done scouting around just before going up on stage. So that's a really good reason to do a little bit of mix and mingle at drinks reception. I also find as well, it eases your nerves a little bit. You kind of just, you feel like your stage show then becomes a bit of a second performance. So that's a thing that I've done. But yeah, so, and also as well, if people insist on we want the stage act, I would say to people, have the stage act, but have it for 20 minutes, not 40 minutes or half an hour. Have it for 20 minutes. And then there'd be a slight reduction in cost or whatever, but I'd say have it for 20 minutes in between that course, and then everyone goes about their business, So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Good advice, because there's definitely disasters happen on stage, because people think, oh, like stage will be fine, and like unlike music, magic and mind reading can't be done really in like the background.
100%. You need people's undivided attention. Music, you can listen to music without looking. You don't have to, a good band can be on and you could be sitting there chatting away to your friend and then, having a little whatever, but totally the opposite. Magic, mind reading, close-up magic, stage magic, all of these things, it's the most interactive form of entertainment there is. There's no other form of entertainment that is as interactive. Stand-up comedy, yes, you might aim jokes at people, but there's no need for interaction. Theatre, no need. Musicals, no need. If you want to get up and dance and sing some of the songs, fine, it's up to you. Not fundamental. For us, it's fundamental that we get that interaction. So it is the most interactive form of entertainment there is.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So I would like to thank you for coming on. And do you want to promote anything or tell people where they can find you online, all that?
Actually, you know what would be great? Yeah. So if I've recently launched a store. So I've got a store. It's www.spelmannxstore.com, and I've just recently released. These are really good fun. I mean, I've released a deck of cards. They're called the 1X 500 deck. So it's based upon everything is designed by me. So all my illustration and stuff like that. So the cards are sort of illustrated by me. There's X in the Ace of Spades. Let me see if I can get a decent light on that. No, it's not good for me. But yeah, so you could so it's basically it's a deck of cards that you get. You get a certificate. There's only 500 of them, and they're selling really well. So there's 500 of them. You get a certificate with it. There's you can do a link on your YouTube channel to the trailer.
Yeah.
But so
I'll put a link to the store in the description as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll send it to you in a minute. Yeah, so you can get the deck of cards. Really good if you're just a collector of playing cards, because there's only 500. There will never be any more. There's only 500. You get a certificate with it that's numbered and signed by me. But also there's my studio space where I do a lot of my filming. It's called Area 50. So there's the Area 50 tutorial. So you literally, if you have never done any magic before in your life, or card magic, you can get this deck of cards. There's 2.5 hours of downloadable content with me performing. It was all filmed in lockdown, so I'm literally performing all the magic with X. So it's like all the performances are me performing with X every part of the sort of performance section, and then I break all the tricks down. So yeah, spelmannxstore.com, Magician 1X 500 deck. If people go on my social media, which is, you can find me at I am Spelmann or at I am Magician X on all of the platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you'll see some of the things that I post up about the deck as well. So yeah, so that's the only thing really that I'd promote. If people, it's a really good gift for someone who likes magic. I've got a lot of magicians that have bought it because they've just said, I want to put them in a frame with the certificate. It's a collector's thing. It's like Magician X from, the pandemic 2020, 2021. So yeah, so that'd be great.
Absolutely. Definitely. And the links will be in the description and stuff as well. And if anyone wants to go to deceivereality.com, we've got some downloads and some Murphy's Magic products there as well. And all the other podcasts are up there as well. So definitely check that out. And again, we'd just like to thank you, Marc, for coming on. We really appreciate it. An absolute
pleasure. Sorry, I know we've gone way over. I know you said about an hour, but I did warn you.
We always tell that because if we tell people we want to go for longer, they run away. So
not me.
Yeah.
I've got part 2 lined up ready for you. But no, honestly,
1 of 50.
It's a really, 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 it's a pleasure speaking with you both. And good luck with everything. If there's anything that I can ever help you guys with, or you want to chat to me about, I honestly, I love magic. I've had conversations with loads of magicians about loads of different styles of magic and stuff like that. So I know you're David, you're the mentalism, and Steve, you're doing a lot of the escapology and that. So just connect with me anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And we'll be back again soon, and I hope to speak to everyone again. See ya.
Take care. See you later.